All right, good morning all. This is a Center of Excellence that we started 2 years back in the name of Leadership Assessment and Development Center. Talking about why we started this, the very motive behind starting this center was the aspiration. Aspiration not to just produce managers, but to produce leaders. So with that, accepting leadership as one of the graduate attribute that we would like to seed in our PGDM or the MBA graduates, plus at the same time being the ACSB accredited institute where we have identified very clear program learning goals. So one of the program learning goals, one of the PLG is the leadership competencies. At the same time, there have been feedback from the industry, from the corporates, from the recruiters about talking about a component called as self-awareness of the students, whether the students understand their own potential with respect to the leadership competencies. So with these things in mind, we started this Leadership Assessment and Development Center with the objective, very clear objective, to increase the self-awareness wherein each student is coming to a level where he understands her own potential for transformational leadership. I'll again highlight this. We can argue on that, why only this style of leadership was considered, but as previous speaker mentioned about VUCA world, so we thought in that kind of an environment, what may serve the purpose better would be the leadership called as transformational leadership. So one, the person increases self-awareness, then identify the potential for transformational leadership, and then identify the traits or the behavior that the person needs to focus on in order to improve the transformational leadership behaviors. So the entire center, if you look at the structure, we have around 450 to 480 students each year. And they go through the 7 comprehensive psychometric tests. I'll be talking in the next slide. There's 1 technical advisor, 21 faculty advisors. They are the trained faculty advisors, trained and certified in the psychometrics that we conduct, plus as well as the integrated protocol. They go through that training, plus many of them are at the advanced stage of getting certified on the coaching from International Coaching Federation as well. We run it with the help of the students. So there are 4 students who coordinate the entire center. There are 15 team leads and the 50 associate advisors who are the students themselves. They are trained in the process of administering those psychometric tests to students and preparing the integrated leadership report. So if you look at the psychometrics that we cover, they broadly cover the aspects of the individual traits, and like we go for the Big 5 personality test, the self-efficacy and the locus of control, emotional intelligence on the individual side. Then we talk about at the interpersonal front, FIRO-B, fundamental interpersonal relationship orientation. Then we consider the MLQ for the transformational leadership. And we also look at the drives proposed by McClelland's, the need for achievement, need for power, and need for affiliation. These are the 7 psychometric tests. Each one of the tests is already validated and tested. So we have no doubt on the validity of the test results that we may be getting. But the integration protocol is something that was developed in-house. So if I take you through that complete cycle, the students, the moment the batch arrives at the campus, during the induction process itself, we start the assessment part. Once the assessment is covered, the students are taken to one-on-one advisory. Now this one-on-one advisory for one student may last for 2 hours also, wherein it's a face-to-face, one faculty helping the student to understand the report that is generated for the person. And sometimes the students come back to us and say that this is for the first time in their life that they have talked to anyone for that duration about themselves. So in that advisory, we help them understand their personality state, their potential for the transformational leadership. And with that, and this advisory is not a very prescriptive advisory. So we only help them understand what the scores are telling them the story, right? So in that advisory, it's a kind of one story we tell them, and then they have their own story to talk about, right? So they can at times accept that, at times they further quiz us that, okay, this is not what is working for us actually in practice. So we help them understand and interpret the entire report for them. But after that advisory, they come up with their own individual development plan, and they work on that, the review is done, and that's how they develop their leadership competencies. And finally, this is concluded with a full-fledged 3-credit course in their 6th term. So what the advisory delivers, the deliverables are clear, specific 4 things. The key drivers which can help the students to develop their transformational leadership, the strengths which will help them to commence on that self-development process, the path, what are the incremental changes that are desired, and is there anything which they need to guard against, which may be actually happening at the unconscious level, which they need to be keeping in mind. Possibly and arguably, the only integrated leadership development center in an educational institute in the country, evidence-based approach, the expert advisory, as I mentioned, that the faculties are certified on the use of the instruments. 3 level of the quality assurance, like for example, let me talk about one test. So if we are taking that picture perception test to identify their hidden inner needs in terms of need for achievement, affiliation, and power, right? So one level is at the student level. They are the trained students. We call them associate advisors. They calculate, they evaluate, they code their stories that they write. They come up with their need levels, which is then vetted by a central TAT team, which is then further at the 3rd level is of the faculty. And the results are corroborated with the students coming up and talking about the incidents that yes, it is making sense for them. And if not, then what could be the possible reasons? We try to explore that. So we did it for 2 batches. One was more of a beta version. Last year, we floated actually at a full level, and wherein we tried to evaluate the impact. So when we look at the impact, there can be short-term and the long-term impact. So at this point in time, I cannot comment on the long-term impact, but we have applied that Kirkpatrick model and tried to evaluate at the 3 level. One is at the learning level, second is at the performance level, and third at the behavior level. So what we have got is on different aspects, like on learning and behavior, we have asked them how they feel that it has helped them improve, let's say, their conscientiousness, how it has helped them to improve their openness and extroversion. When it comes to the performance, we have a students group. They work in the faculty advisory groups. We call them as FAST groups. So even they work on their assignments within that group. So how that has helped them, develop or emerge as a leader in that particular group. So we see around 30 to 40% of the students have accepted that they were able to actually change their one or more behavior. When we talked about the impact on performance, it was more than 78% students agreed on that yes, they have been able to see that impact. So this is what they have to say. Some of them do accept this, that this is for the first time they get to know where they stand. For very simple, it's not that they were not aware of these tests. For example, personality tests, they are all over internet. You have to just go and fill in the questionnaire and you'll get the result. But that advisory actually helped them to understand that if they are low on openness and they are higher on any other aspect of their personality, so how that is to be interpreted. and how that will actually come out when it comes to the behavior in the real life. So similarly, we have the testimonials from the industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. And our next presenter is Dr. Sandeep Bharadwaj from Vivekananda Education Society Institute of Management Studies. And the topic for their initiative is active learning through on-field.